ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। So last time we discussed in brief the materialistic philosophy, Charvak philosophy. So Charvak philosophy, Yogi ji was asking who has propounded, who is the founder. So I looked up. Actually, there is no historical figure mentioned as to who propounded that philosophy. So someone by the name of Brihaspati goes as its founder, but he was purely a mythological figure. So we don't really know. Actually, what I think is Charvak is just a viewpoint, a materialistic viewpoint. So in order to show the gradual development, the evolution of the human mind, we start with the materialistic philosophy. That's where human being starts. That is why I think this Charvak philosophy has its origin there. I don't think that anybody actually philosophized in this way and founded this philosophy in that way. That may not be. So today we will start a discussion on Jainism. All of us are more or less familiar with some principles of Jainism, and nearly all of us have heard about its founder, Mahavira. But actually, Mahavira is not known as the founder of Jainism. The Jainas actually they recount the names of 24 teachers. They are known as Tirthankaras. So they believe that through these 24 teachers, their faith has come down. The first of these teachers, they say that he was Rishabhadeva. Rishabhadeva, and the last teacher, who is generally known as the founder of Jainism, actually was the last of these 24 teachers. He was, we know, Vardhamana or Mahavira, Lord Mahavira. Maha means great and Veera means courageous. So courageous means, here it means hero. So Mahavira means the great hero. So Mahavira is said to have lived in some time in the 6th century BC during the time of Gautama Buddha. We all know about Buddha and Buddhism a little. So he was the spiritual successor of the 23rd Tirthankara known as Parshvanatha. And it is said that Mahavira was born in the early part of the 6th century BC into a royal Kshatriya family in what is known as present day Bihar. So Mahavira, like Buddha, was born in a royal family and he abandoned all worldly possessions at the age of about 30 and left home in pursuit of spiritual knowledge and became an ascetic, similar to Lord Buddha. So it is said that Lord Mahavira practiced intense meditation and severe austerities for 12 and a half years, after which he attained Kevala Jnana. Kevala Jnana means, in Jain terminology, it is called omniscience, omnipotence, perfect knowledge. All these are denoted by the term Kevala Jnana. In short, it is called liberation. What we Vedanta terms as liberation, the same thing is denoted by the term Kevala Jnana. So, the other teachers of Jainism, besides Parshvanatha and Mahavira, they belong to prehistoric ages, so we don't know about their dates or anything. Even about Mahavira, the date of birth is subject to a lot of controversy. Nobody exactly knows when he was born. So, these teachers are all known as Jinas. Jinas etymologically means a conqueror. Why are they known as conquerors? Because they have conquered themselves. They have conquered all their passions, they have conquered their minds, and have thus attained liberation. So, Jainas, they adore the Tirthankaras or the founders of their faith as the highest. They do not believe in God or Ishvara as Vedanta does. Jainas only recognize the Tirthankaras or the liberated souls. Liberated souls means they were once in bondage, but through their own efforts, through their own austerities, through their own meditation, they became free, perfect, omniscient, omnipotent, and all blissful. So, what the Jainas believe is that each one of us, every jiva who is in bondage now, can follow the example set by the Tirthankaras. Not only can, he should follow their example, and by walking along the path shown by them, he can also attain liberation and become all blissful. He can also get rid of all sorrows for all time to come. So, this in brief is about the founder or founders of Jainism. Now, in course of time, the followers of Jainism were divided into two sects. Most of us know about those sects. They are the Digambaras and Shvetambaras. So, the difference between Digambaras and Shvetambaras is not so much in the basic philosophical doctrines. Both of them accept the teachings of Mahavira as their guide, but they only differ in some minor details of faith and practice. The teachings of the Jinas are accepted by both, but the Digambaras are a little more rigorous, while the Shvetambaras are more accommodating to the society and our life in the present day society. So, for example, the Digambaras hold that the ascetics should give up all possessions, even their clothes, whereas the Shvetambaras hold that they should put on white clothes. So, these Digambara and Shvetambara, their derivations are very interesting. Ambara means clothes. So, Digambara is made up of two words, Dik plus Ambara. Dik means the directions, the quarters. So, Digambaras, they don't wear clothes. So, this name as a derivation means those whose clothes are the quarters. Means the space is their cloth. That is why they are called Digambaras. So they don't wear any clothes. While Shvetambaras, this word is made up of two words, Shveta plus Ambara. Shweta means white. So Shvetambaras are those who put on white clothes. This is the way these two words have been derived. So they also point out the difference between Shvetambaras and Digambaras. Now, a few words about the philosophical outlook of Jainism. Jainism believes in realism and pluralism. Slowly we will get acquainted with these terms. See, realism is a philosophical term which claims that the world that we see is real and it exists independent of our minds. This is in short what is realism. And pluralism comes from the word plural. Plural, as we know, many. So pluralism is the doctrine of multiplicity in opposition to monism and dualism. Monism, you know, unity, and dualism means where they believe that the realities there are two realities. So the Jainas are pluralists and realists. For example, they say that the world consists of two kinds of realities, living and non-living. Every living being has a spirit or a soul which is called a jiva. This term is the same as Vedanta. Vedanta also says that the individual soul is called jiva. So in Jainism they say that each living being has a spirit or a soul which is called jiva and also a body. So since each living being has a jiva, that's why Jains lay so much stress on non-injury, because they think that one should not injure anybody because each living being has inside a soul. So there is a lot of respect for life, and ahimsa, you know, ahimsa, non-violence, plays a very, very great role in the Jaina philosophy, because each soul is a living entity and nobody should injure any other soul by any means. So one is ahimsa, and another very great feature of Jainism is respect for the opinion of others. Means Jains believe that it is not that there is only one correct view of reality. They say that reality can be viewed from many aspects and all those are true. So according to the Jains, their metaphysical theory of reality is many-sided, it has many facets. This is called Anekantavada. Anekantavada. According to them, every judgment is subject to some condition and limitation, and there can be various judgments about the same reality, and all of them can be true. This is a very important aspect of Jaina philosophy. They give a simple example which Sri Ramakrishna also has given, that some blind people went to see the elephant. So one caught hold of the trunk of the elephant and described the elephant on the basis of that trunk. One person caught the feet of the elephant. He said that the elephant is like a pillar. Another person caught the tail of the elephant. He described the elephant in his own way. But all those were describing the same elephant. So this is the example which Jains give to explain Anekantavada. Hmm. The reality as many-faced with many facets. Now we come to the Jain theory of knowledge. Last time we saw how Vedanta believes that only the soul, which is consciousness, can be actually the knower. So Jains have a similar belief. They say that consciousness is the inseparable essence of every soul. Jains also believe that consciousness is inseparable from every soul. And they say that consciousness may be compared to the sun's light. Sun's light, it manifests itself as well as every other thing upon which it falls. We don't require any other light to see the light of the sun. So the sun illumines itself as well as all the other objects upon which its rays fall. Similarly, consciousness also reveals itself according to the Jains. This is similar to Vedanta, and also manifests everything around it. All the objects of the world are manifested by consciousness. But the Jains believe that although consciousness is capable of manifesting itself and everything else, but if there is some obstruction which prevents consciousness from reaching its object, then it cannot reveal that object. So the Jains believe that the soul, the jiva, is actually omniscient, but there are some obstacles on its way. When those obstacles are removed, it will regain its true nature. So omniscience, according to Jains, is potentially inherent in all the souls. Omniscience is potentially inherent in all of us, but because of some obstacles, we cannot manifest that potentiality. Like Swami Vivekananda has also said, his famous statement, each soul is potentially divine. Potentially, mind you, that potentiality has to become manifest. That is the thing. So Jains also have a similar belief that all the souls are potentially omniscient and omnipotent, but there is some obstruction because of which the manifestation of this omniscience is thwarted, it is obstructed. Because although we are omniscient, in real life what do we see? That our knowledge is limited. So this limitation is due to the obstacles which the Jains say is created by different karmas. Different karmas obstruct in different degrees the natural consciousness of the soul. Therefore, they, means the karmas, deprive the soul of its omniscience. They deprive it how? By putting obstructions in the manifestation of this omniscience. So, according to the Jains, the body, the senses and the mind, the whole our body sense mind complex is all constituted by karma, and the soul's power is limited by these things. Our body, mind and senses all limit the power of the soul. They are the obstructions. This is one thing. And about knowledge, like other thinkers also, last time we had discussed this pratyaksha pramana. So direct perception. So Jainas also admit that knowledge is of two kinds. One is immediate, what is aparoksha, and the other is mediate, that is paroksha. One is direct knowledge, one is indirect knowledge. Direct knowledge is called aparoksha. Aparokshanubhuti, you must have heard about the Vedantic text by Shankaracharya. Aparokshanubhuti. Anubhuti means realization. So aparoksha anubhuti is direct realization, and paroksha anubhuti is indirect realization. So Jainas admit these two, but they point out that what is ordinarily regarded as immediate knowledge or aparokshanubhuti is only relatively immediate. Now this has to be explained. You see, aparokshanubhuti in terms of Vedanta is direct realization of the soul when we realize our real nature. The Jains also believe that true aparokshanubhuti is what the knowledge we gain by self-realization. They also believe the same thing. So this direct perception, what last time we discussed, pratyaksha pramana, the Jains say that this direct perception, when I see something, when I hear something, this direct perception is only relatively direct. It is not absolute direct. Absolute direct knowledge is only when we realize the self. This is only relatively direct knowledge, because our direct perception, what we see, what we hear, this perception of external or internal objects, which we last time discussed under pratyaksha pramana, this perception is through the indriyas and the mind. When I see something, as we discussed last time, the mind is involved and our eye is involved. So this direct knowledge is through our indriyas and mind. So Jains say that although this is called direct knowledge, it is actually not direct. Direct knowledge, according to them, will only take place when there are no minds or indriyas to obstruct our knowledge. And that can only happen when we have the direct perception of reality, which is called liberation also. So they say that this, according to them, this direct knowledge is also of three kinds, but we won't go into the detail. We will only see that the name which they give to absolute knowledge or omniscience. According to the Jains, the direct knowledge means this self-realization also happens in stages. Therefore, direct knowledge also they give three names, which happens by degrees. So we are only interested in the final stage, which is called Kevala Jnana. Kevala Jnana is the final stage of this direct knowledge, what in Vedanta they call aparokshanubhuti. So when a saint has this knowledge, this is the final stage, and he is then liberated. This is the thing. So we have already seen that the soul or the jiva, according to the Jains, is a conscious substance. Consciousness is the essence of the soul. It is always present in the soul, but its nature and degree may vary. Each one has a soul, each living being has a soul. Animals have souls, human beings have souls, even what we think of as inanimate things, even they have souls according to the Jains. But the nature and degree of this consciousness varies. So at the highest end of the scale means those who are most conscious, so to say, at the highest on the end of the scale will be perfect souls who have attained Kevala Jnana, who have overcome all karmas and have attained omniscience. They have the highest degree of consciousness. And at the lowest end stand the most imperfect souls which inhabit the bodies of earth, water, fire, vegetables, all that. So according to the Jains, all these have souls, but they are the lowest. Their degree of consciousness is the lowest. In them, life and consciousness appear to be absent, like in a vegetable. When we see a vegetable, we don't see any life or consciousness. But the Jains believe that even here there is consciousness, only it is in a dormant form. Consciousness has become dormant because of the overpowering influence of karma obstacles. The more the obstacles, the more consciousness is hidden. And the less the obstacles, the more this consciousness becomes manifest, according to the Jains. So in the soul which has become liberated, there is no obstacle, there is full manifestation of this consciousness. But in the lower beings, like the animals and vegetables, there are a lot of obstructions in the form of karma. And these karmas, they don't let that consciousness manifest itself. So this is what they say about the soul being conscious. Now, according to the Jains, it is the soul that knows things and performs activities, enjoys pleasures, suffers pain, etc. It is the soul which does all that. But Vedanta is a little different. According to the Vedanta, all these pleasures, pains, etc., all these belong to the mind, not the soul. But according to the Jains, it is the soul which performs activities, which enjoys pleasures, which also suffers. This is the difference. The soul is eternal according to the Jains, but it also undergoes change of states. So although the soul is eternal, but it keeps on changing. It is different from the body, and its existence is directly proved by its consciousness of itself. So the soul resides in the body, it is different from the body. And how is its existence proved? Because the soul is aware of itself. We all are aware of ourselves. This awareness, according to the Jains, proves the existence of the soul. They also give some more arguments about the existence of the soul, which we will see later. Now, what happens is, the soul does all the activities, enjoys pleasures, suffers pain. Now, because of that, the soul accumulates karma. So, owing to the inclinations generated by its past actions, a jiva or the soul comes to inhabit different bodies, like our principle of many births, Vedanta. So, similarly, Jains also believe the same thing, that the jivas inhabit many different bodies one by one, higher bodies one by one, till they become liberated. So, the soul resides in the body, and since it is conscious, like a light, it illuminates the entire body in which it lives. This is the Jains belief. Like suppose in a small box, if you put a light, what happens? That light will illuminate the whole box. So similarly, Jains believe that our soul, which is conscious, resides within our bodies and it illuminates our body. Soul has no form like light. Light has no form. So, if we put a light in a small box, it will illuminate that box. If we put the light in a big box, it will also illuminate that box, because the light has no form of itself. So, Jains say the soul is similar. Although it has no form, it acquires like a light the size and form of the body where it lives. Like light has no form, but if we put it in a small box, it acquires the frame of that box. If you put it in a large box, it will acquire a bigger size, the same as that box. So similarly, soul, although it has no form, it acquires the form of the body in which it stays. In my body, it will acquire my form. In the body of some animal, it will acquire its form. This is the belief of the Jains as regards the soul inhabiting the body. And they believe that the soul or the jiva is not infinite, but coextensive with the body, as it can know only the objects within the body. So, consciousness, according to the Jains, is not present everywhere, but only in the body which it inhabits. So, now we will see some arguments which the Jains give to prove that the soul exists. Like last time what we had studied, the Charvaka philosophy. According to the Charvak philosophy, there is no soul at all. But the Jains and all other schools, all other Indian schools, they deny this, they contradict the Charvakas. They say that no, the soul exists, and we can prove, we can give some arguments in proof that the soul does exist. So, what is the first argument the Jains give? They say that the existence of the soul is directly proved by such uncontradicted experiences like I feel pleasure. I feel pleasure. This, nobody can contradict this experience. I feel pain. Nobody can contradict this experience, because we ourselves know when we feel pleasure or pain. So, according to the Jains, this feeling of pleasure and pain is the property of the soul. And they say that when you perceive the quality of a substance, we also perceive the substance along with that. Now, just to explain this, there is a red rose. When we perceive the red color of the rose, do we perceive that red color separate from the rose? No. We perceive it as a red rose. So the red color we cannot perceive as separate from the rose. As soon as we see the quality red, we also perceive the rose along with that. So giving this example, the Jains say that when we perceive the quality of a substance, along with that we also perceive the substance. And pleasure and pain are the qualities of the soul according to the Jains. So when we perceive pleasure and pain within ourselves, we also perceive the soul. So the soul also is indirectly perceived in that way. So there is no question of the soul not existing. Because when we perceive the qualities of the soul, we also perceive the soul. Then they give another argument that the existence of the soul may also be indirectly proved by some inferences. What are those inferences? Now, body. We see that the body, our bodies can be moved and controlled at will. We sit down when we want, we get up when we want, we walk when we want, we run when we want. So the body can be moved by at will, like a car or something. So therefore the Jains say there must be someone that moves and controls the body. There must be some conscious entity which moves and controls this inanimate body. So this conscious entity is the soul. Also another argument they give that the senses, our sight, hearing, etc. are only instruments. We have already discussed. So if these are only instruments by which we gain knowledge, there must be some agent, a conscious agent who employs these instruments to gain knowledge. So this conscious agent is the soul. These are the proofs in short they give of the existence of the soul. Now another interesting thing is, we will see how they contradict Charvaka. They prove that the Charvaka theory about consciousness is false. It cannot be. Last time what did we see? The Charvaka holds that consciousness is the product of material elements coming together. Last time we saw. What does Charvak say? Charvak say when all the parts of the body come together, automatically consciousness is produced. But the Jains say that in the whole world we cannot give even one example when inanimate objects, inert objects, they join together and produce a conscious entity. There is not even a single example that inert objects can combine together and produce consciousness. If inert objects combine together, they only produce inert objects. There is not a single example in the world where we can see that inert objects produce to manufacture consciousness. So when the Charvakas say that inert objects combine to produce consciousness, they are actually believing something which has never been perceived, which has never been the object of pratyaksha. So actually Charvakas are also inferring. They are inferring that inert objects, when combined together under some circumstances, they will produce consciousness. So on one side Charvakas say that we only admit pratyaksha knowledge. On the other side, they are inferring that inert objects combine to form consciousness. So they are actually accepting also inference, because they are contradicting their own words. they are stating something which demands inference. So this is how Jains contradict the Charvaka theory. Charvakas admit that the Pratyaksha Pramana is the only Pramana, but the Jains and the Bauddhas, they admit Pratyaksha, inference as well as Shabda Pramana. We will all discuss these Pramanas slowly. Shabda Pramana is the faith in somebody who is trustworthy. So the Jains and Buddhists believe in that, but unlike the Vedantists, they don't believe that the Vedas are Shabda Pramana. This is the only difference. So we will slowly come back to all this and study a little. So I think today we can end our discussion of Jainism. Some more points are there which we can finish the next time, because everything put together will be too complex. So in short, let us recapitulate what we have discussed. In that way it will be easier to understand. First we discussed the founders of Jainism. They are the Tirthankaras. 24 such founders are there, and the last one is Mahavira or the founder as we know of Jainism. So the Jains don't believe in God as such. Tirthankaras take the place of God in their philosophy. They believe that each man should follow the teachings of the Tirthankaras, and by that he can also become omniscience and liberated like them. Then we saw the two main sects of Jainism, Digambaras and Shvetambaras. Then we saw that Jains believe in realism and pluralism. Realism means all the objects which we perceive, which we cognize, are real. They exist independent of our minds. And pluralism. Pluralism because they said that there are many jivas. Each body has a soul, so there are as many souls as there are bodies. Next, we saw that the Jains believe that consciousness is the essence of the soul. Consciousness can never be separated from the soul, and consciousness manifests itself and all other objects. But the problem comes when the manifestation of this consciousness is obstructed by our karma. Then that manifestation is hampered. So the aim of life is to get rid of that karma so that our consciousness is fully manifest and we become liberated. And according to the Jains, the soul is eternal. It is like a light which pervades the entire body in which it resides. And how can the existence of the soul be proved? They say that when we perceive the qualities of a substance, we also perceive the substance automatically. So when we experience the qualities of the soul, like the pain, pleasure, etc., we also perceive the soul. And also we know the existence of the soul by inference. Inference how? The body moves, does what it likes. So there must be something which moves the body. The body is inert, it cannot move of itself. So there must be consciousness which controls the body and moves it. This consciousness is the soul. So these are the points which we have discussed today. Next time we will have a look at the Jain ethics. Ethics means we will see how, according to the Jains, the soul becomes bound, although the soul has infinite potentiality, omniscience, omnipotence, everything, but still it becomes bound. Why? And how it can get rid of that bondage and become liberated. So, how does bondage take place and how the soul is liberated when it is freed from all bondages, and the way, the guidelines, what the soul must do, how the soul must conduct itself to gain right faith, right knowledge, and thus free itself from the bondage of the world. This we will take up next time. Next is Dipali Di.
Thank you, Maharaj. I want to know about in Jainism, what happens to the soul? Does it die with the jiva? I mean, when one dies?
No, according to the Jains, we have seen that the soul is eternal. So next time we will discuss that what are the obstacles to the manifestation of this consciousness and how the souls can manifest full consciousness and thus they can become liberated. Next
in
time
another body?
No, when they become liberated, then they don't have to take up another body. Then they are free. Then they are free. Naindarji.
Thank you very much. It was a very nice talk.
Thank
The
you.
only thing I would like to say, was the Jains, they believe in soul,
Yeah.
but they don't believe in God.
As we see that Tirthankaras, they occupy more or less the same place as God, because one has to have an ideal. See, although they say that they don't believe in God, but the worship which they offer to Tirthankaras is more or less the same which we offer to God. So, actually, practical viewpoint, if you see, the Tirthankaras have taken the place of gods in their. So, these are all minor beliefs, but we see that actually in practice we all follow more or less the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Purvidi.
I was just thinking that, so the Jains
Yeah.
view of Atman,
Yeah.
they don't have any view on Atman, do they?
They don't
I
have.
believe Atman, Vedic, in Vedanta we have Atman.
Yeah,
So they
their Atman is the Jiva, because Jiva is conscious. The consciousness is an essential property of the Jiva. So the place of our Atman is taken by their Jiva. But they believe that the Jivas are many. As many bodies, so many Jivas. While Vedanta believes that there is only one Atman and the Jivas, what we see, are only reflections.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So is it a little bit like Sankhya, lot of Atman?
Sankhya, correct. We will see that. Yeah, same. And there, the Jainas, the way they believe that matter obstructs the manifestation of the karma, consciousness, that is also very similar to Sankhya. We will see all that later on.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Anadi Babu, anything?
Yeah, so it's a beautiful talk as usual. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next is PR.
Oh, yeah, Swami, this is Prabhakar Tripathi. I think maybe the spelling I wrote it.
Yeah,
I've got some confusion about when you say that about the karma, give up the karma in the Jainism.
Yeah.
Is it we are saying that we should do karma to free the bondage on the consciousness or something, jiva, or we are saying no, don't do any karma.
No,
It
we
will,
have to do
it
karma.
will itself.
Even the Jains say that we have to do karma, but we have to do that type of karma which will release us from the bondage we are in. Because we cannot live without doing karma.
Yeah, I read that one. I was reading the Vivekanand also. I think he has also very clearly said that the karma we should be doing is which should unwind our old bondage or something
Correct,
like that.
correct.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I was
suppose
thinking.
we tie a string like this, then it binds. When
Yeah.
we unwind that string in the opposite direction, it will release. So it is similar to that. Karma done in a selfish way binds us. When we do unselfish karma, it acts like this, it releases us.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very knowledgeable and the thing, and I think I am getting a lot of information. I read a lot of the books, but a lot of questions are there.
Thank you.
No, you read the books and you don't get the answers. You say, oh, okay, next page. But by talking to you and listening to you, it's a wonderful experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. Supriya ji?
I have one clarification rather.
Sure.
So just after you explained Aparakshanubhuti,
Yeah.
you were talking about the lowest and the highest degree of consciousness, right?
Yeah, that is according to the Jains.
Yeah. I'm according
Yeah.
to the Jain.
Yeah.
And the lowest would be the inanimate objects.
Yeah.
But later in the lecture, you said when they were talking about how do we recognize soul or the proof of the existence of soul.
Yeah.
That was the one example or there pointed that not you, but you quoted that put together a lot of animated things, they will never produce consciousness.
Yes.
So then why do we keep them as the lowest form of objects? We shouldn't count them to have any consciousness, right?
See, when the Jains say there is no object which is unconscious, they mean to say that each object has a jiva or soul residing in it. Now, see my eye, what is called eye. According to the Jains, this eye has a body and it has a soul. The soul is conscious, but the body is not conscious. So, when they say that everything has consciousness, means, according to the Jains, everything has a soul which is conscious, but the covering of the soul, that is unconscious. So when the covering moves, when our body moves, there must be something conscious which moves it.
Okay.
Yeah, like
to that happen, the outer the body, their ability or inability to express consciousness, it depends on their karma.
On the karma.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nirmal Bhattacharya.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Very entertaining, very enlightening. A couple of questions. One,
Sure.
like the Buddhists, Jains don't believe in some god.
Yeah.
So, in that case, what did the Tirthankars meditate upon?
They meditate upon Satya, what they knew as truth.
And they found the truth. And what's the truth?
The truth can't be expressed in words. Even in Vedanta, you cannot express the truth in words. So the truth, according to Vedanta, is the soul. According to Jainism also, the soul is consciousness and it is omnipotent, omniscient by its nature. So that is the final truth. I think according to Jainism also, when the soul is free from karma, it acquires all the properties like omniscience, omnipotence, etc. It regains that. So according to our definition, it is God who is omniscient, omnipotent. according to the Jains, each soul is omniscient and omnipotent. So that which is,
Sir, we say Satyam Shivam Sundaram.
yeah, so each soul, since,
That is the truth.
yeah, because if according to the Jain each soul is omnipotent and omniscient, that must be the truth, no? Because after that there is nothing. That must be the
The
supreme.
soul, if the soul is not affected by karma, and the body, every time the soul acquires a different body, it's not the continuation of the soul in the same body, different bodies. How do that happen? I'm just
It is
confused.
the continuation. The Jains believe in rebirth. The Jains believe that, like Buddha and like Hinduism, they believe that each soul, one soul, eternal soul, it inhabits different bodies till it can get rid of the bondage of karma. And the soul is influenced by karma. We have not said that the soul is not influenced by karma. The Jains believe that the soul is very much influenced by karma, and the bondage of karma can only be cut by karma itself.
So the basic difference is that we believe in in Vedanta that the soul, the ultimate aim of the soul is to reach moksha or nirvana by meeting with the Godhead, by being part of this. But the Jainis, they don't believe in any such thing. They said, seek the truth, but it's not quite clear to me at least what that truth is.
The truth is the soul, omniscient and omnipotent soul. That is the truth. When it regains its true nature, it is liberated. That is the truth. If something is omniscient and omnipotent, that is the final truth. What can be beyond it?
That sounds very much like a concept of God in
Of
Vedanta.
course, it is very much like. That's what I said in the beginning. That we simply call these things different by different names. Yeah, but everything is the points to the same thing. So Supriya has used this term Kevala Jnana. Kevala Jnana means liberated, that final knowledge. Final knowledge. Yeah, Mr. Smith.
Yes, maybe one question. When you're talking about the Jains and overcoming the karmic obstructions to perfection, is that functionally equivalent to the Vedantic concept of Maya? Can we make that comparison?
No. Maya is a different philosophical concept. Maya may produce karma, Maya may produce ignorance. But Maya cannot be karma. You cannot equate Maya with karma like that. Karma may be a product of Maya, ignorance is a product of Maya.
Okay, so there's nothing in Jainism that is equivalent to Maya. Is that essentially?
No, that term does not exist in Jainism by what I know, what I have read.
I know the term doesn't exist. I was wondering if there was a concept.
No, I did not find that concept because Jains believe in realism. Everything which is happening is absolutely real. There is no illusion or anything. The soul is actually being obstructed by its karma. And actually, it has to practice certain karma to get rid of that bondage. So everything is happening real. So there is no question of any Maya or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we can end here today. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.